Well, let's start today a little bit just with an introduction of each of us, really. We haven't been doing that, and folks are probably wondering who are these guys? And so, just a short take on me. I am Dave Shields, and I have 36 years' experience as a psychotherapist. In about 18 years, have been certified as a professional coach. Although just this last year, I've really set aside the therapy hat and have pursued coaching predominantly. So interested in coaching folks to their fullest potential. Yeah, I have a strong desire and belief that folks can achieve great things. And in particular, I'm interested in working with what I call NFers, and that's folks who are intuitive feelers and heart driven, passionate folks. And so that's just a snippet from me. How about you?
Our company is it's a deliberately developmental organization. So within the company, everyone has an expectation, and an expectation almost makes it seem it almost seems like kind of a negative connotation. But most of the people that joined our team because we're a high growth organization from both
Hmm.
a business development team perspective, but also from an individual perspective. It doesn't matter how senior you are within our company or whether you're just starting with our company or interning, everyone's expected to further their development. So, and then in addition to that, my entire journey coming up through high school, college, I've just been very interested in personal development. Um, constantly reading books to see if there's an area that I can improve on, taking feedback from anyone that I can find that will help me achieve my goals. So that is all the angles that I kind of approached this topic from.
That's fabulous introduction. I appreciate you sharing that, and I've been witness to you and your team, and have a tremendous admiration for the focus on both personal and professional growth, which is a big emphasis. Was a big emphasis for me when I was facilitating, supervising the training program at Kenosis Counseling Center. We had about 300 interns go through, and I always, even on the interview process, probably similar to you, I would ask hard questions and then to seek. I would check to see if there was an openness to growing both personally and professionally, and that led to a fantastic team at Kenosis. The kind of camaraderie and personal interest for self and others, alongside the professional interest of wanting to grow that way.
Yeah, I almost it, and later we'll get into what our individual purposes are, but I almost can't separate the two. Professional development and individual development, it is it's so connected, and I just couldn't see have just because it's so important to me having a workplace that didn't have an emphasis on personal development as well. And
Hmm.
I think a lot of workplaces they have an interest in your development so far as it relates to that company's individual goals. But I actually have an interest in the development of our team members beyond our personal goals. Like I want them to develop in any way that they want to develop and encourage them to take steps to make those improvements. And I think that that's a little bit different because it goes outside the scope of what is traditionally um, viewed as like your responsibility within like a training and development department within a company.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like the secular versus the non secular, and the way that we apply that to business or the workplace. Right, the personal stays out, the business stays in.
Yep.
And what you're saying is that to really maximize the impact of a business, that both the personal and the professional need to mingle, and that there needs to be some interaction between those two. And then, yeah, yeah.
They definitely need to mingle, and it's because there's crossover, not only crossover in skill, but also crossover in if things are not going well in your home life, it's hard to not think about those things when you're trying to do your daily tasks at work. And conversely, if your work situation is not going well, it brings a lot of stress to your home life too, because then you start to worry about income. You start to worry about, if you're going to get the promotion, or if there's going to be, you know, it's usually related to income, whether that type of stuff is going to be available to the family. So it's just really difficult to tease those things apart, even when it's not the actual skill that we're talking about. But I do think that the specific skills are relevant back and forth as well. If you learn how to be a good leader for your team, there's a good chance that as a father or mother that you'll learn how to be a good leader for your children. So
Absolutely.
a lot of the skills transfer both directions, and I'm interested in it from that perspective as well.
Yes. Yes. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about purpose today, right? Would you like to start out, Aaron, and just share a little bit about what your purpose is, and maybe a little bit about how you came into knowing that and developed that over some time?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. And I, I was trying to think about how to discuss this because it's a little bit unusual that I actually view the work that Tetra Prime does as almost philanthropic from a certain perspective. So because there's a lot that we do that's above and beyond that's not really necessary from from a perspective of financial return. Uh, we try to get a return on multiple different capitals within our company, including social capital and the relationships that we have amongst each other and the community, and also human capital, and that's the skills and talents that we have. So I believe, and I'll try to see if I can sell this, and you let me know if I do a good job at convincing you that this is the case. But I believe that personal development is best achieved in the pursuit of a long term goal with other people. And because you need the other people to bump up against the challenges that you're going to face. Most of the challenges you can't sit in a vacuum and just think about the idea. It's like thinking about how to play football. It doesn't really get you to be a good football player. You got to know what it's like when somebody's running at you
Hmm.
and dealing and giving you the challenges that you face in a real situation where you're trying to achieve a goal. So I view the business as an opportunity to achieve our objectives, but also to develop as individuals. And I just think that that is very different than the way that most people view business. I think a lot of people, they approach it and they want to make money and they think about how to gain a return, which is a component of what we do. But there's the other part that is really focused on developing individuals. And I don't think that I could do as good of a job developing somebody without seeing them struggle, basically, without seeing them
Hmm.
try to achieve the goal, the thing that we're all after together, and observe the challenges that are happening. And I approach that in two different ways currently. Well, three different ways if you include coaching that I would do outside of what I primarily do. But I do that through growing our team, bringing new people onto our team, and developing those individuals, helping them with mindset and different things like that. And then I'm also a jujitsu coach, so I help children, teaching them how to do jujitsu.
Hmm.
So both of those endeavors, you can see that there's a goal. There's something you're going after, and nobody's letting you get that. So you have an opponent or you have competition in the marketplace, and you're still trying to achieve this against resistance. And through watching people, and myself included, because in jiu-jitsu I'm also a student and not just a coach, and within Tetra Prime I'm also developing myself and not just
Hmm.
developing other people, because nobody is exempt from this process of personal development, which I know that you and I share that common belief as well. So I don't know if that clarified what my purpose is, but I do think that business development can be a vehicle for personal development, and that is that is my core objective.
Gotcha. Yeah, thank you. And so uh, it's almost yeah. Yeah, it's almost like serving a. There's so many layers when you talk. Serving a purpose, maybe an individual purpose, a team purpose, serving something bigger than yourself, as well.
Yes. Yeah, and I really do think that it's very helpful to have the long term and the team focus and the struggle towards a goal. Otherwise, it's really hard to pinpoint the particular challenge that somebody's having without having that focus. Because there's certain things that you can only uncover with having a long term focus. And there's certain types of challenges that you can only uncover when you start working together as a team.
Hmm.
And like your ability to have empathy for other people, your ability to see other people's perspectives, your ability to understand people's unique strengths and weaknesses, those things don't really get revealed until you try to do teamwork, until you try to achieve something as a team. So, and I view that as individual development, although it can only be identified within the context of a collective team effort.
A collective team effort, and you talk about the end goal or the prize that you're
Yes.
working towards, and then the process is revealing, right? It reminds me of when I re-entered the dating scene, and one of my good friends giving me excellent dating advice said, you don't make any big decisions early. You really need to take a year. It's going to be a year before you really get to know that potential person, in ways that really make them human, and real. And so that it reminds me of that example, that you get into the process and you hope that you interview well and bring the right people on board. But then in the process of working together, you really start to discover each other on the team. And that can be magnificent discoveries, right? And tough setbacks at times as well, or stuck points for folks. The journey isn't always easy, and some of the best stuff comes out of the struggle, in terms of personal growth and then professional performance.
I'm a little bit curious to hear, you know, I've known you for a long time, so I have a sense of your purpose, but I don't know if I've ever asked you to articulate it directly. So I'm curious to know, how do you describe your purpose?
It's interesting. It has changed, or maybe morphed or matured over the years. I went to a men's retreat back in the early '90s, and as a part of that retreat, you had to really develop your mission for life. And at that time, and for many years forward from there, my mission was to heal broken hearts by first healing my own. And that was a really perfect fit for being a therapist, right? Lots of folks coming in with broken hearts, needing to really be able to heal and move on from that, to become more functional in their lives, and to have more enjoyment in their life. What I have found in the last 10 years probably, is that I want to go beyond that. There's a strong urge in me to bring folks to their highest potential. That sometimes, what we do is sometimes, in the difference between therapy and coaching, the short take on that is therapy gets folks from a non-functional place up to baseline. It eliminates symptoms and issues that we struggle with on a daily basis, in depression or anxiety, or some things along those lines. And we get folks back to a level of functioning in their lives where they can function and do okay. And that's really where coaching starts, right? We take somebody who's got a good life, let's say, or a functional life, and we take them, the next couple of steps is how can we have that person go for extraordinary? Is good enough just good enough? And I find many folks want better than that. And so my my purpose has really shifted then in this last decade towards folks who really want to be the best versions of themselves.
There are a lot of things that we do. Coping skills are coming to mind that are good for getting us out of, getting us back up to baseline. And then I don't know if you could help articulate, but and some of those coping skills can be taken even further. Like you can
Hmm.
really refine those and really um, take it to the next level. So I'm kind of curious. So I guess let me start with this. As a jujitsu coach, I noticed that you can know how to do a move and you can get it right enough to be better than average.
Hmm.
But there's a big difference between being better than average and being a black belt. And even
Hmm.
people that are black belt, they try to be like a second, third, fourth, they try to get stripes on that black belt. And so it just, but it's not necessarily that they're doing different moves. They're just much better at executing those moves. They're just much more precise. Their timing is better on them. They're they're really honing in on the details to bring it to another level. And when they start refining the details on all the different elements that they're working on, it makes a dramatic difference.
Hmm.
It's what leads to like exceptional performance versus a performance that's just above average. And you wouldn't think that those minor details would add up in a way that is so dramatically different. And I'm wondering what that looks like, the crossover between the skills that are developed in somebody that is just trying to get up to baseline and how that morphs into the skills that are required to get somebody above baseline. Are they the same skills, just performed at a higher level, or are they an entirely different skill set, or what does that look like?
It's a great example. I think that it's sometimes an extension of the same skills they use to get to baseline, and then going beyond that, kind of like what you said. Other times it's really adding other skills. And the other piece that came to my mind as you were talking is that some folks who I've worked with over time, or even friends that I've known who've gone the extra mile, let's say, to learn those jujitsu moves in such a way that they earn their black belt. There's a level of when it comes to purpose, and once we kind of know what we're supposed to be doing here on Earth, right? There's the work involved, and I like to think that there's a level of commitment to do the kind of work that's required. There's a need for perseverance. The path is not always smooth, and sometimes it's terribly jagged. And so I think sometimes the pursuit of a purpose, in the process of doing that, we can develop character. I think that of some of the folks that I've known in the martial arts, I've got a cousin that I grew up with who his level, he was so far advanced. His level of peace and serenity was just apparent about him. His level of calm, his level of confidence, and he just carried himself in a really strong way. When you were around him, you knew that you were around somebody. And so that's the first thing that comes to my mind is the path that gets us to our purpose or gets us living our purpose. Sometimes the path is as essential as the outcome.
Inspire Coaching has different domains, different types of coaching. And I'm wondering if you can help me understand how that purpose manifests through the different types of coaching that you do.
Interesting question. I think that for me, whether it's life coaching or relationship coaching or leadership coaching, which is the three domains that we really operate in, it's really all about inner mastery. Over time, since I've become a coach, I've worked with a number of business owners and business leaders, and it's really fascinating. Sometimes we can start with an objective problem that they're experiencing with their business, and it almost always comes back to something personal that needs to be tweaked or learned or grown, and that when that happens, then their whole approach, the way they perceive the problem at work, maybe shifts or changes, or the solution kind of takes care of itself. And so, when I think about the three domains that we coach in, I think that inner mastery really is the key, even in couples coaching. I have an eye on the relationship. A couple will come to me, and really I'm I'm called to really serve the relationship, but as I do that, I look at the individuals in that relationship, and take a look at where they're at in their personal development, and where they need to heal or grow, or adapt or change, and in that. So I'm working individually as I'm working with a couple as well, and there are sometimes I'll work with couples independently of each other. So I'll see the husband separately and the wife separately, and as they do their work and get closer to identifying their purpose and mission in relationship or in marriage or in family, then their personal growth starts to enhance the marital relationship in powerful ways. And then I get feedback in those individual sessions about some of the improvements in the marriage, and as a direct result of the personal work that's being done.
That's a great answer. And the whole time that I worked in the field of mental health, and this is not knocking mental health at all. I mean, there's valuable things that are provided, but I'm such a person that is driven by um, something that's inspiring, like a goal that's inspiring, and getting me back to baseline, or back to, that's necessary sometimes. When you slip and fall, you need to be brought back up, but it just was never really an inspiring goal. Like, if it's not big, it doesn't like hold my attention. And
Mm,
you
mm,
know when I think about like leadership, developing a team, relationships, all of those things, I don't. It's just so hard for me to get my mind around somebody wanting to have an average relationship. I mean, especially average in today's world, right?
yes,
Like we can
yes,
do so much
yes,
better than that. So I just think that
yes.
it's just absolutely necessary. And I can't get my mind around uh, being an average leader. Like,
Yes, yes.
does my team want an average leader? I hope not. I hope that they
That's
want
right.
me
That's
doing
right.
as well as I can.
That's right.
So it, it, I just can't get my mind around a world where that's not the case. And I
Yes.
believe that that's the case for many of the NFers that are out there as well.
Hmm.
Am I accurate in that assumption?
Yeah, you're reading my mind. I think you're talking for NFers, and I know that last week on the recording on the podcast, you asked me about, does everybody have a purpose, and
Yep.
or should everybody have a purpose? And I thought about that after we finished that recording, and I thought, I almost felt like I had to say that no, not everybody needs a purpose, because I've
Uh-huh.
read about folks who've written and talked about not needing a purpose. I've run into some folks over time who've said, no, I don't really have a purpose. I just kind of do my thing day to day, and so they are out there. But I say that to say, in my heart of hearts, I'm much like you, Aaron. I believe everybody is built for something, here on Earth, and that could be, repairing cars as a car mechanic or owning a mechanic shop. It can be any sort of thing, um, but I think we're all built for a purpose, and I think NFers in particular are dreamers. We aspire to greater things. We have a calling. We almost always feel like we have a sense of purpose to serve something bigger than ourselves, and it's exciting. It's lovely. And it can be incredibly frustrating too when you're not living that purpose. It's folks early in their life sometimes are just confused and not sure about what the purpose might be. Other folks have a sense of it, maybe even from childhood. But life happens, they adapt and they grow skill sets and go to school and do things that are sideways from their purpose, right? And so they again, they're functional, right? They're paying the bills, they're getting the groceries, they're taking care of the kids, but they're not necessarily happy. And we know from the research in America, just from I think 24 months ago, that only about 30% of workers in America say that they're fully engaged in what they do and enjoy it. And that is incredibly sad to me, and it's incredibly unacceptable. That other 60 some percent of folks, they deserve to have and do in their lives what they're built to do. Sometimes we need to get refocused and get realigned with, that used to really appeal to me, or I used to have a real interest in that. And then find a way to reintegrate that back into life, or to change life in such a way that I'm able to then get aligned with my purpose.
Oh my goodness. You just brought up two things that I think are worthy of a podcast episode in and of itself. When it's right to rearrange life to fit your purpose better, and when we can look for our purpose in our current situation. Because when I
Yes.
was working on the inpatient psychiatric unit, I started to understand that I really liked the developmental part of it, and I liked the de-escalation that we were doing. So once I started to hone in on that, I was able to find opportunities within my current role. So
Mhm.
I specialized in doing and teaching de-escalation to the rest of the staff that was on our unit, and I became like kind of the go-to person for running groups. So I didn't have to
Mhm.
change roles. I stayed in the same job. I just kind of specialized my responsibilities into a certain area. Same thing in business development. When I became a youth mental health first aid instructor, I just kind of repositioned within that current role.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes that is that's the best strategy. And sometimes we need to make more dramatic changes, like maybe our current career path is really just not such a good fit, and when to know the difference between those two. When passion is so out of alignment that it requires a more dramatic life change, or whether it just needs a slight reframing of what we already currently have, and maybe a deeper appreciation of what's available to us right now.
Yeah, in my experience, what I find is that everybody's situation is unique to themselves, right? I've worked with folks who have been able to make a huge life transition and maybe a career transition from one career all the way over to a second career. I've worked with folks that have vision. One client of mine has vision. He's got 5 kids, and they travel a lot in his work all together, and he's working in one job that he's good at, but doesn't necessarily have passion for. Him and his wife have a shared passion, and so what we did with him was we created an interim plan. So I think we can. Sometimes folks can get impulsive when they start to feel out of balance and not aligned with their purpose, and make a knee jerk response that can be costly in the end. This client, in contrast to that, he knows he needs to work to pay the bills, to maintain a certain level of living for his family, while he works to save, to really budget and save towards launching a business together with his wife in approximately 12 to 16 months from now. And so that's another idea. He's not really able to. I'm going to back up for a second. He tried to change some things about his job in such a way that he would feel more aligned with his purpose, and it was helpful, but it wasn't enough. And so he gave it the good old college try, improved his work quality, or his quality of living at work, and then really kind of reviewed it again and said, that's not enough. I want to go do what my wife and I have planned and dreamed about ever since we met. So
Yeah, it's funny that I have. I was telling somebody the other day that they were asking about what my work arrangement was going to be like over the holidays, and let them know that I work every day, and their response to me was like, "Well, that's unfortunate." Like,
Yeah.
but to me, because I'm excited about the work that I do, it kind of was a strange it was kind of a strange moment for me because I view it as I get to do the work that we're doing as opposed to he was viewing it as, oh man, you have to work all the time. And if I would remove work from my life, I would be less satisfied.
Hmm.
So I it reminds me of another conversation that I was having that is a very similar phenomenon. Somebody was asking me like how I get the most productivity out of myself throughout the day. Well, for one, it's because people that need purpose to feel driven, getting clear on that is helpful. Like you feel like inspired to do the thing. But I was telling him, he said that he has a practice of writing down the things that he wants to achieve the next day, the night before he does. And I think that that's a phenomenal thing to do
Hmm.
if you can do it. But what happens with me, because I'm so inspired by some of the things that I do, if I do it too late at night, it keeps me up at night because I'm excited about the things that we're
Yeah.
implementing. The
Yes.
other
Yes.
day, Dave, you and I were putting something together where we were running a test to see if something was going to work or not. And when just the thought of that was like, I'm really interested to know, is this thing is it going to unfold the way that we believe that it should unfold?
Hmm.
Um, and I'm like genuinely excited to find out whether or not our hypothesis is correct, that's going to unfold the way that we want it to. And if I'd start thinking about that kind of thing before I go to bed, I become inspired and I have a hard time sleeping. Now, contrast that with the way that a lot of people live their life, where they don't want to think about their work. Anytime that they're not at work, they don't want to think about it. If they do think about it before bed, they're kept up, but for a very different reason. It's not for inspiration, it's for dread. Like, oh, I got to go back. Or Monday, Sunday is going into Monday. Monday, it's like, I got to go back to work. And
Hmm.
it's just a very different existence if somebody can align their career with their passions and with their purpose. Now, with that being said, it is challenging to do that. And that's why the work that you do, Dave, is necessary with helping people find what their purpose is and clarify it and take the necessary actions to move themselves closer to it. Because it's a difficult thing to find, but I think that it's a worthwhile thing to find because as you can imagine those two scenarios that I painted, the person that feels pity on me that I have to work every day, and I think that I'm so grateful that I get to
You're a
work
lucky
every day,
guy, right?
and the person that like dreads Sunday nights or
Yeah.
doesn't want work being brought up when they're not at work. It's just a dramatically different life experience, and to think that your working life it takes up the majority, literally
Hmm.
the majority, over 50% of your waking hours. So I don't know. I just encourage people to look for it. It might take some time to actually hone in. I still feel like I'm fine tuning and getting closer and closer to the specifics on it, but it is definitely worth it.
Well, and I just want to give a short reflection just about your energy and my energy today on this recording. We are like two kids in the candy store. Work for us is joy. It's a joyful experience, and if you're watching this that resonates with you, or you're watching this and it makes you angry because you may not have that in your life, then it's time to take some action because what we're experiencing individually and together in our relationship, you and I, Aaron, is possible for everybody. It really just is, and to be able to be aligned with your purpose, to be able to go to work and enjoy what you do, so it doesn't have that dreadful experience piece of it that we see in the research and that I've seen in so many folks that I've worked with. If this resonated with you, leave a comment and let us know what you thought. If there was a piece that was missing for you, some extra thing that you'd like to have heard more about, please ask a question. And we're filling out the podcast future each week as we think about some of the areas and issues that NFers need to hear about.